So you're a dentist, eh? You're in the right place. This is the Canadian Dentist Podcast with Dr. Carlo Biasucci, where you'll get a truly Canadian approach to building a low-stress, highly profitable practice and live life on your terms. Learn more at theelitepractice.com.
Hey Elite Practice family, this is our Q&A session, and we've done a different format this time. I've actually got Christine joining me in the studio today, and she's going to ask me a series of questions. And by the way, I don't know what they are in advance, so this should be interesting. But we're going to try this format to give you something different to look at. And this is a kind of on-the-fly Q&A, questions I don't know, but they are coming primarily from our members. They're common questions and questions that we think would benefit everyone. So yeah, let's take it from the top. Christine, what kind of questions have you got for me?
I have quite a few of them over here.
All right, looks like a long list. I see 2 pages, so this might take a while. And by the way, if it ends up over time, we'll just break it into 2 parts for you guys. Yeah.
Sounds good.
All right, let's start right off the top with number 1.
Alrighty, so can you discuss the damage that gossip causes in the workplace?
Okay, good question. So with gossip, I mean, this is primarily the entire culture module, right? I mean, that whole first section is pretty well entirely about gossip, right? When you have gossip, you have undermining of trust. Undermining of trust is the antithesis of a team. If you take away the trust in a team, then there just can't be a team. So it's tough to stamp out, because that's the next question. Okay, well, what do I do about it? I mean, we know gossip is bad, but what do I do about it, right? So might as well just finish the question, because I know everyone's going to be thinking that. What do I do about it? So what we did is, because you can't police thoughts, right? I mean, it's been tried in the past. It doesn't work. You can't make people think a certain way, but you can. Going back to 5-15-80 and some of those conversations, that is well discussed through our training as well, Many Weekend Wisdom, so I won't belabor that. But you have the extremes of your team, the poles of your team, right? You have the top and you have the bottom in terms of personality, in terms of capability, in terms of gossip, no gossip, right? So you have the real top of the heap player and the real bottom 10%. Whoever is pulling more is where the team will end up. And that includes things like gossip. So if your team is stronger at the top with less gossip, then generally it will not be a culture of gossip. Another big thing is it starts at the top. If the doctor is listening to the gossip or likes to hear it, horrible scenario, by the way, or at least tolerates it when it's taking place, that condones it, and then it just feeds that culture. Yeah. Whereas, when I heard gossip, I made it a point to stand there awkwardly and sometimes would ask the question, what does this have to do with the patients, the practice, or the team?
I remember that.
Sometimes you got to do that. Like, it's not being rude. I'm not walking around, beating people up over it, but it's hurting the practice. It's hurting the team. So you have to be vigilant about it, right? Like, bordering on aggressive about it. We did make it a rule. It did say in our, we did say this in the onboarding material, that gossip is grounds for termination. I don't care what the employment law says. I mean, maybe it's not grounds for termination with cause, but it's termination for me. We just wouldn't put up with it. If we had a person that just couldn't live without gossip, we couldn't have them. It undermined the team, and you would know right away. See, the other thing is when you push for a no gossip culture for as long as you possibly can, it starts to be where people see the benefit of it, and they really don't want it, although it's human nature to want to gossip. So this is a tough thing, right? It's really hard to police it, but when you push in that direction for years, let's say for a couple of years, when a new person comes on and they just want to talk about everybody, everyone's like, what's going on, right? So you get that happening, and it starts to police itself. And, it's all I can say is it's worth fighting that fight.
Right.
And to think you're ever going to overcome it completely is a fallacy. You're not going to overcome it completely, but you can minimize it to the point where it's not damaging your team.
Right.
So do you have anything you want to add to that?
No, that's perfect.
Yeah, I think that's where I would go with it. Start with the culture module. I mean, that's ground zero for training and understanding of what do I do and what should I be talking about with the team, and just go through that training module because it kind of covers it. While it sounds very elementary at the first go through it, like, this is really what we're talking. Yeah, it is, because that's playground etiquette. That's 2 years old in the sandbox kind of etiquette that you need to deal with. And that's how it is with people. We just get older and then no one's telling us not to do stuff, but we still do it, right? So that's the reason why it's a little more elementary, but we have to tackle those things on the front end. Otherwise, how are you going to get all these complex systems in place and people working together for the best interest of the patient's practice and team if we can't get past gossip?
That's so true.
Yeah.
Definitely. Now, you're hiring a new employee. How long does it take to get them from day one to like fully trained, capable, and a great employee? Like, what's the expected reasonable time frame?
Okay, good question. We got to unpack that a little bit because there's more than one piece to it. So the way we set it up, well, initially, like average office when I started, new employee to competent was 6 months. Because you'd hire Sally and you put her beside Mary, and Mary would have to train Sally for like whatever it took till Sally saw everything that Mary knew how to do. And it was by osmosis and unintentional. So it took whatever it took. It could be 6 months, it could be a year, it could be 3 months. It depends on what they saw.
Right.
Whereas when we built the training platform, and version 1 was built entirely for us, now we're at like version 3 or 4, and that's what everyone is using for their employees, which is fabulous. I wish I had that 15 years ago.
For sure.
But that system will allow you to take a, off the street, non-dental background new employee and get them capable like 80% of the way there within a week. And now I can put them, I can let them near my prized possession, which is my patients. I can let them near my team without worrying that they're going to destroy my culture in a week, because that can happen, right? You hire the wrong person. It doesn't take long for them to totally undermine your culture and take you weeks or months to put it back together. We've seen that, right?
It's true.
There's some people that are just like human wrecking balls, and you put them in a team that's like, oh my goodness. But with the OneScore, with the hiring process, with all of those things, you weed out some of the crazy, you weed out some of the, competency issues, capability issues, like mental capacity issues and so on. And so you were ending up with a pretty good subset of people to start with.
Right.
From there, okay, now we take them through a base training program and we get them competent and we put them where they need to start training. Now, if you have a more complex built out training platform, and I have seen this, one of our members has done this and I like
Excellent.
it. They basically modeled what we showed, right? So it's not just the basic stuff. It's now they've created their own processes for onboarding for specific job roles. So if I have a new assistant coming on, they can do the basic stuff, welcome to the team kind of thing, and then specifically assistant role. What do I need to know? Because we've shown this, right? So we have the assistant training program, the admin training program, the office manager, hygiene. All of these areas are built out in terms of what does a person really need to know to be really competent in that role. So we created these things. And then those processes are what we use to train our people. Now, the difference between what you see in the platform and what our people would see is in the platform, here's the general way we need to do this. But in your office, a person needs to literally know, where do I click? When do I click? What, specifically show me in the software that you have in your office, how do I do this?
Right.
So you would just take the time to record the extra stuff and put that together for the person. So now I could take a person from yesterday, I like to use the example of barista or food service, worked at a hotel, and within a week, I can get them 95% of the way there.
Right.
Okay, so now they just need the difference, which they'll get on the job. They can't get that anywhere else. Because, by the way, people can only retain so much stuff from videos before they see it, right?
Right.
So it's not like you're just going to put them on a video training platform until they've watched everything and then put them out there and make them do it, and they're going to know it. You gotta, adult learning, any learning, kids are the same. We're homeschooling my daughter last year or so. And I get to see this in action now because I've studied, how do you teach? How do we learn things, right? Because we're teaching people stuff. I have to make sure that people are going to grasp it. If we're going to teach your team how to do something, how are they going to actually make it stick? So they're going to watch video for a certain amount of time. Then they're going to go and shadow someone, right? So the first week of training in our office, let's say, was not, doors shut, watch video for 5 days.
Right.
Because no one can do that. You check out by 3 hours in. But if they watch video for a couple hours, then go shadow, then go watch video for a couple hours, then go shadow. Don't touch patients, don't speak, don't ask questions, and just take notes and watch, right? And then at the end of that week, they're really competent. Then they can start, interacting with the person they're shadowing, and that person will start asking them questions, and they'll start doing, and the other person will watch. And within a very short time, I'm talking 2 weeks, you can have anyone competent.
Perfect.
So that would be my goal. Assistants included, clinical team included. Like hygienists, 7 days.
Okay.
Okay, maybe. And I know we did it in 5. Well, no, I shouldn't say that. 7 days. 7 days was average because they would watch the first week. By the end of the week, they were doing but shadowing.
Right.
And then a couple days the following week, we would cut them loose and let them go. And then there was coaching too from myself, like from the doctor. Always needs to be involved in some feedback, right? Like corrective feedback, and even in front of the patient. So if I have a new assistant, just as an example, I've done this I don't know how many times. Unfortunately, I was the training person for new assistants, and fortunately and unfortunately, because you get to see who's any good, but at the same time, you also kind of make them good because you're responsible for the people you work with. Like they're a reflection of how much you're teaching them,
right?
Basically, or how patient you are with them. Some of them, granted, don't have the mental capacity. So if you didn't use a 1 score on the way in and you're surprised, well, you shouldn't be. But if you did and you got this person, well, okay. We'll talk about, I guarantee in your questions, we're going to talk about hiring or how do I find an assistant if I can't find an assistant. So I'll leave that for now.
Okay.
It's coming, right?
It is coming,
Okay,
I'm sure.
So there you go. We'll get to that one. But when I have a new assistant working with me and they don't know exactly how I do things, they've seen it done in video, but video is different than doing. So I would take the time to, the first time they make a mistake, I would just show them, okay, hey, when you're doing this, let's do it like this, and here's why.
Right.
Because you're less likely to drop the instrument on Mrs. Jones' nose. And she'll laugh, and the patient will laugh, and everyone's laughing. But I'm not kidding. Like I'm teaching them, right? So you're teaching them so that it looks like you're not getting upset. Everything's cool. I'm just trying to teach her, right, or him, or whatever. I've had really good male assistants too, by the way. So you're trying to do it in such a way that the patient's experience is still great, that they still look at you and say, I like this guy or girl. They care about their people.
Right.
The patient cares more about that than they care about the work you're doing, because they want to know that I can trust this person. So how you train people in front of a patient is huge. You give them heck in front of a patient. We have a few examples of associate doctors that were rude to a staff member, and then the patient comes around after and says, I have to talk to you about this doctor. Right. And they just want to choke that person because they were rude to the assistant. Well, nothing destroys your reputation as a business, things like that, because, the patient is going to identify more with the support team than the dentist. It's
true.
Generally, right? So you got to be careful of those things. I feel like I might be getting a little off track, but that's important to mention, how you approach your team when you're training them. And don't be shy to teach them stuff, to speak up, to make sure that they're doing what they need to do. The worst thing you can do is, okay, I'm going to go to my team leader, my office manager after, and I'm going to tell her to talk to the assistant because she didn't pass me the thing right. Well, how? Like, then it becomes gossip. It becomes like a problem, right, when it could have just been, hey, when you do this, because that person's not going to remember what you're talking about. Then the other person is like a third party to the conversation. That's the worst thing you could do. Right. Just say it right there. Just tell them, okay, let's do it like this. I have said multiple times to new assistants, hey, you know what? You know who's really got this? Do you think you could hold 2 instruments in each hand? Well, you know who's really good at that? You should go see Christine, right? Have her show you between patients how to do that. It'll totally change your world because you won't have to keep doing this all the time, and it'll be way easier on your back. And as you do this for a few years, you're really going to be thankful that you learn how to do that. See, it's a way of saying it, not that like you don't know how to pass. Like just to show them, right? Okay,
Right.
like, let me show you what I mean by, pass firmly. Why? Because if I know it's there, then I'm not going to drop it. I'm not looking for it, right?
Right.
Might knock it out of your hand. It's sharp. So we just make it fun, but you got to teach them and you have to be active about it. If you've done this for 2 weeks and the person isn't getting it, you didn't do a 1 score. I guarantee it. I guarantee it, okay? That's the bottom line. All right. Have I covered that question? I think I beat that question up.
No, I think that was great.
All right. What's
I'm
your
gonna
next
do-
one?
I can't find staff. What should I do?
Oh, okay,
I can
good.
lead right into that
so
one.
you're
That's
gonna
next.
give me that one now. Okay. All right. So good question. I can't find staff. What do I do? Well, this is the bane of existence for every dentist everywhere right now. I can't find hygienists. I can't
Right.
find certified assistants. Okay. So where we live and currently are filming this, there is no school for either of those qualified, assistant or hygienist anywhere near us. The closest one is 3.5 hours away by car. We trickle in 1 or 2 out of those classes here. Most of them, they're from Sudbury or they're from down south in Southern Ontario, and so they don't make their way up here.
Right.
So we couldn't get them either. Hygienists were gold if you could get them even 10 years ago. Now, it's not any better, put it that way. So what have we done? Well, first of all, there's creativity in your hiring process. Then there's mindset about your hiring process. Then thinking outside the box and doing more with less. Let's unpack those. And I don't have any of this written down or rehearsed, so if I forget anything, please remind me what I said.
Okay.
So the first thing was, what was the first thing? Okay. is your hiring process. So creativity in your hiring process. How do I go find these people? So we have sent people to recruit at schools. Not just the closest ones, by the way, right? We've sent people to go find wherever these people graduate and sell them the position. We created like recruiting packages with, here's why it's great to work in our office. Here's why it's great to live in our town. Here's XYZ, right? Because most of our new hires for a while, when we doubled, remember 2015?
Yes.
We were flying them in from Toronto.
We were.
We were paying for them to move here. We were giving them like, I don't know, $1,500 to pay the moving company to bring them to Sault Ste. Marie. And we would, we'd ask them to sign a minimum 6-month contract that if they left, that they would have to pay it back.
Right.
And most of them stuck around for a year, which was, I didn't care. We needed desperately the hygiene, particularly hygiene then, right? We weren't really dying for assistance because we had another process for that, which we'll get into. But you got to think outside the box with hiring. Most people think, oh, geez, this is ridiculous. Why would I have to do that? Well, you need them, or if you need them, you need them. There's no way to make a hygienist. They have to go to school for X number of years. They have to get a certificate or a diploma or whatever certification that it is in your area. But you can't just hire them and teach them how to be a hygienist like on the job.
Right.
So you got to think outside the box. So we had these elaborate recruiting schemes going. We had a recruiting website. We had all kinds of stuff going to just get applicants. We would have headhunting bonuses. We would have signing bonuses. We would have whatever it took to steal them from anybody around us. I didn't care. Now, this brings us into pay. So I'm just going to give you a mindset around how do I pay a person? Because I have a feeling we're going to talk more about this after, but maybe I'm wrong, so maybe I'll tackle it now. Again, I don't know the question. So how do I pay a person? Well, okay. So if my going rate is $35 an hour for a hygienist, by the way, it's like 45 now, I'm sure. Say it's 45. And I need 3x on my wage to be happy. Okay, so they need to be doing at least $150 an hour in revenue. What if I got to pay them $50 an hour to get them? Well, I'm not excited about it. I'm not excited about that. But I would do it because I need the hygienist. Why?
Right.
Because hygiene, I don't care about how much profit I make in hygiene. There are ways to increase it, first of all, but the secondary and most important thing is I'm looking for them to drive doctor production. If I can and get new patients in.
Right.
They're the bottlenecks in our process for new patient flow and ultimately for doctor production. So if I can get hygiene to at least to remove everything from my schedule that is less than $800 an hour, all my numbers work.
It's true.
Right? So emergencies, specific exams, delivering piddly stuff, try-ins, ortho, and I feel like I'm missing something big. New patient exams.
Patients, yeah.
Yeah. So if you pull that stuff out, then now we're talking game changer. Okay? Because now I can produce full speed. So I know that as a doctor, if all my doctors and me are doing, $800 an hour or give take, I think I was doing about $1,200. The associates were doing about $600, $700, which is great.
Right.
Then if hygiene was up or down a little, I didn't care. If hygiene was break-even-ish, I was fine, because you're pushing through 5 new patients a day, a whole column of emergencies,
right,
a whole column of stuff that isn't in the doctor's column now. You just shifted the production, right? So I paid him an extra $5 an hour, $10 an hour even. Who cares?
Yeah.
I'm not looking at that. If my overhead is so precarious that is going to kill me, then we have other problems. You're underproducing in hygiene, big time.
Right.
So I will point you immediately to the practice growth challenges. Because right out of the gate, practice growth challenge with adult fluoride is going to add you a few $100 a day, covers the wage. More than covers the wage increase, by the way. And right out of the gate, within 2 or 3 weeks, we're seeing the average team who implements a practice growth challenge like that, any of the hygiene ones, they're seeing 85% average case acceptance. So it's just money out of thin air. You don't even have to raise your fees.
It's funny you say that, because I pick goals with doctors and office managers and stuff like that. And as soon as we pick the goals and then they implement that fluoride growth challenge, we have to increase the goal.
Yeah, exactly right.
It happens all the time.
And while we're on this topic, I should finish this, because I had this conversation with one of our members yesterday. It was really good. It led down a very useful path that we should recap here. If you're implementing a practice growth challenge, how do I get accountability? How do I get them to do it? Well, if you keep track, there's a reason why I give you in the practice growth challenges at the end, there is that little Mickey Mouse thermometer thing that is, to give you you keep track, you draw the lines on it and you keep track day by day. There's a reason for that. You're basically creating a competition, friendly competition between your team members. You're always going to have that one hygienist who's going to knock it out of the park. Right. You're always going to have that one hygienist who's like asleep at the wheel, doesn't really know where they are on your team, right? You have one who's going to way outperform and one is just there for the paycheck.
Right.
So how do I get them all to a level? Raise the bar. By putting it in front of everybody every day where we are. So Mary's done, she's got a 90% case acceptance with this. Right. But Sally over here has 10%. What's Sally going to think? That's kind of embarrassing. I better do something about that. Right? And all of a sudden, she'll be up 50% the next day,
right,
70% the next day, or she'll quit, which is fine. I mean, that's okay too, right? If they can't earn their keep, then you're not, because it's not like you're asking them to do miracles. Like, they're recommending fluoride anyway. It's just making a decision based on whether the patient has insurance coverage or not, or asking them.
Right.
Like, come on, it's 3 sentences. It's not that hard. And if the patient has any questions, here's a picture. We can't make it any easier than that. That's why they have great case acceptance. So it's that simple, right? So that's how I would be looking at that.
Perfect. Okay,
so now I got off track. There was more to it. I have to go back a little. So I said creativity in the hiring process, because this is back on hiring now. We never finished this. Then I said, what was the other one now? See, I should have wrote these down. Creativity in the hiring process. Who are we hiring? Okay, right. So while I can't find a certified assistant, do I need a certified assistant? So one of our biggest things that we know, by the way, if you're in a jurisdiction where you can hire or you can create your own dental assisting school or something like that, do it. I tried to do it, but in Ontario, you fall under the Private Career Colleges Act, which is a nightmare.
Okay.
We had a person on, you might recall this, for 3 months, I had someone on this. working with the government, trying to figure out how can we create that. It was so onerous of a process. I'm like, I'm not looking for another business. I just need staff. Okay. So forget it. Never mind. We didn't do that. But what we ended up doing though, now, by the way, if you can do that, please do it. I know a lot of our members in other areas have done this successfully.
Yes.
And it's a great way to feed your practice with decent qualified or sometimes even excellent people. And you're training them so you know what they're learning. Now, having said that, just like for the doctor, I would suggest, I just gave you the example, how do I pull everything out of my day that is less than $800 an hour in production? How do I get it out of there? I put it in hygiene, right? So It's worth overpaying to have them because they're freeing me up. If I can do $800 an hour instead of $400 an hour, what am I actually paying that hygienist? You know what I mean? Like that's the mindset. Like how much different, anyway.
She's paying you pretty much.
Yeah, basically, exactly.
Yeah.
Like I'd pay him $100 an hour, just get it off my plate because I'm up 300 anyway. Like, you know what I mean? That's the mentality. So anyway, I would look at it the same for your qualified staff. What can I take from in Ontario, we have level 1, level 2, PDA, whatever. And in the States, you have the FDAS and you have whatever. And there's all kinds of different classifications. But what is this person doing that someone non-certified can do? And can most of that stuff be done by the non-certified person? The answer is yes. So we had people, some of our best assistants were ex-teacher, steel plant worker, like food service, hotel front desk people. Waitresses were generally very good in the setup cleanup area, like in the backup assisting. Why? Because you can juggle 10 things in your head and then get interrupted and not forget what you were supposed to do. Right. People have been trained like that, like presenting treatment or doing fast finances. Okay, all clinical staff hates doing that. Hate talking about numbers. But you know what? The girl who was just working in retail, who is now a backup assistant, you know what she did all day? Talk about money. And talk about money in a way where the person actually wanted to do it. Like this person was talking about money not in a way they were shy about it because it was their livelihood. Right. They talk about money every day, all day long. So that person is excellent at doing fast finances because like, oh yeah, I can tell them that. They're not like, well, your filling's $500. Straight face, no problem. Yep. Well, yeah. But the dental assistant's like, oh, once you do that, you're done. Like exactly. So can I take things off the plate of people that I can give them to something where it's a skill for them, it's a strength for them, versus it's a weakness for the person I'm trying to make do it? Right. And the answer is yes, absolutely, because we have done this time and time again. We have, still to this day, I was doing general anesthesia 2 weeks ago in the clinic, and still to this day, the lead assistant team, I think there are 4 lead assistants. No, I'm mistaken, there are 3. One of them is certified. Okay, 1. Then there's other assistants, and then all the backup team is just like we did. Right. We would find the best personalities, 1 score, hiring process exactly as we teach, and then we would turn them into what we needed with the system that I have shared with our members, right? Here's exactly how I trained my assistant team. They did this process. And you know what? They didn't just do it once. They did it once, then they saw, they went back and relearned, and it's a process, right? But in doing that, I control my wages and I control my capacity. If I can maintain $800 an hour in my doctor production instead of $600 an hour in my doctor production, is it worth the energy? Can I carry an extra person? Yes. Definitely. Yes. Absolutely. So we have tackled creativity in the hiring process. Who am I hiring? There was a third. What was your original question?
I can't find staff. What should I do?
Okay. Yeah, right. So the last thing, what was the last thing? Now it's going to drive me nuts. I don't know. I'll come back to it. Don't worry about it. There was something else, but. All right, so I never did figure out that third point during the recording, so I'm adding it in here after the fact. The third point was doing more with less and thinking outside the box. So if I need 4 hygienists and I've only got 2, what am I going to do? Well, here are some things that I would look at right out of the gate. The first would be, could I do some kind of an assisted hygiene model. Now, I typically don't like assisted hygiene. I would much prefer the hygienist runs their own column and spends all the time with the patient, because obviously they can build a better rapport with them and case acceptance goes up. Now, if you have an assisted model, then that can help, especially getting 50% more hygiene patients seen, but you've got to do one thing specifically. You've got to have one assistant with the patient the whole appointment, so that someone is walking through that patient's experience the whole time, holding their hand, and is helping with the case presentation ultimately, right? Because they're there from the very beginning, building rapport with them, getting that know, like, and trust factor, third-party endorsement for the hygienist when they come in. It's probably going to be a hygienist the patient already knows, so that shouldn't be too difficult of a transition. But then the assistant stays there the whole time to speed things along, put in the notes templates, which, by the way, if you're not using templates for your clinical notes, you're taking way too long, and just expedite the appointment. The assistant should be taking the before and after, the smile simulation photos, any photos that are necessary. If they're certified, take x-rays. If they're not, then do everything that they can except x-rays, and the hygienist can take x-rays if you need to. Or if there is one assistant in the office who's free, then they can jump in and take x-rays. Lots of ways to play this as a team effort. But absolutely, I would be looking at that as an option. So that assistant who's in the room the whole time then will help the hygienist close the case, whatever they present, okay? And the hygienist will show what they found, take us some intraoral pictures, explain to the patient. Then the assistant will stay with the patient and discuss with them from there, even into the doctor exam and dismissing the patient and so on. So this is a pretty straightforward process. I don't love it, but this is not a typical market scenario. So we're in just a real crunch. So you got to do what you got to do. The second thing I would do is I would try to make every hygiene patient as valuable as possible. If I can only see, half as many or 3/4 as many as I would usually, I would like to make them as productive as possible. So obviously practice growth challenges, but absolutely I would be doing smile simulations. And it only takes a simple front face smiling photo, which you could take with any iPhone or otherwise, or any camera of any kind. Take it, and if you have, obviously you're not going to have time to do this while the patient's there if you're just using a photo. Even with the preview software, it might take too much, messing around. But just tell the patient, hey, I'm going to do a simulation. I'm going to mail it to you. Is that okay? Super simple. We take the picture anyway because it's part of your records update. Very, very important wording there. But then hey, you know what? If you don't mind, I'm going to do a simulation. I'm going to mail it to you. And I'll give you my email address. So if you want to contact me after, then so be it. But you got to print and mail it, okay? Don't just email it. Emailing is a quick and easy and simple way to get it there, but it's not enough. You gotta mail it. There's just no way around it, because then it sits there. It sits on the counter. It gets pushed around. It gets noticed. It creates contemplation while it is in front of the person. An email, easy, delete. It gets lost in my inbox. Forgot about, right? You got to mail it. So that's the other thing that I would absolutely be doing with hygiene, is spending time doing before and after imaging of some kind. Now, if you have a scanner like an iTero, then do it while the patient's there. It's part of your records update again, because the iTero does show things like, recession year over year and that kind of thing. So take the scans, show the patient. If you can do a smile simulation on the spot, great. If they want it emailed to them, great. But I would still print it and mail it anyway as a follow-up, okay? Incentivize your hygienists. If you take X number of photos in a day or X number of scans with patients, then I'll give you X. Or get a token, right? Use the incentive system we teach you. Just take a token for hitting, 4 scans or 5 face photos for simulations. And then who can do the simulations? Well, anybody, right? Any of your non-certified staff, a high school kid, anybody that you can get to just monkey around with those things. It only takes a few minutes, and then set up get all the images printed, put in folders, and put contact information for your treatment coordinator or whoever you want them to reach out to. It could be the assistant they saw during the appointment, a little handwritten note, and off it goes. Super, super simple. But that's the kind of thing I would be trying to do. By the way, I would be doing this anyway, but especially important now when you're stuck, right? When you need to do more with less. So hope you found that useful. Back to the program.
I do want to mention too with the brochures that we brought to the colleges and stuff, we are actually making those for clients. So that's something we do have, and we can customize it for different offices and stuff. So
yeah, that's great. I highly recommend you do this if you've never thought of doing it. You got to get creative. You got to think outside the box.
Yeah.
There's just no way around it. You have to do things that you never thought to do or never wanted to do or otherwise. You know, I think it's if you're trying to do what everyone else is doing, then it's just like if I'm sending postcards in a super crowded market. Everyone's sending postcards.
Right.
If the potential patient's going to get 6 postcards in their mailbox, how am I going to make a decision, right? But if you're everywhere, and I mean you're sending the messages on Facebook, you're finding them on LinkedIn, you're on Facebook groups, you're doing everything you can do to find people and get in front of them, you are going to make much shorter work of something than the person who's just putting an ad out on Indeed.
Right.
Like, yes, you will find people that way too. We have a good process that works. But if you really want to find them quickly and you need to find a few of them, you need to be really engaged in it. And I'm not saying the doctor should be doing this at all. A staff member should be doing this. Someone on your team is capable, probably knows social media way more than you do, or way better than you do, or has time to do it in their personal life, or they're on it anyway.
Right.
Give them a recruiting bonus. I mentioned we did a recruiting bonus. So,
yes.
$500, $1,000 if you bring someone to our office that we hire. Simple. We've had people cash that in.
Yeah.
I paid lots of those. But hey, I'm going to spend that just trying to find a person.
Right.
So.
Actually, that leads me to another question too. Rushing the hiring process, not waiting for the right.
Yeah.
You know where I'm going with that.
Oh, go ahead. Finish your question.
No. That's pretty much.
Okay. So rushing the hiring process because we're in a hurry.
Right.
So what you skip on the front end, you pay for tenfold on the back end. That's the simple answer.
Yeah.
If you skip the one score, you're going to spend a lot of time training a person, and it's going to be a gamble. Will they have the mental capacity to do the job? They may not.
Right.
Right. Like you might find it. Okay, we got to this point. They're doing great. They're great. But I can't seem to teach them anything else. Yeah, because you know what? Their mental capacity has been reached.
Right.
And you're halfway through training. So now I'm putting it in one side and it's falling out the other. Because that's all they can hold.
Right.
You need someone who can handle it all, right? So again, one score does not guarantee, a good one score does not guarantee a great hire. But a bad score always guarantees a bad hire.
Right.
So if the score isn't good, problem. Don't hire them. Like, I grab a person who is clearly unqualified, or it's debatable. This reminds me of no, I won't go there. It's okay. Too long of a story. But if you're unsure, don't do it.
Right.
Again, now you have to have the mindset of I hire a person, they don't work out. How quickly do I get rid of them? Now, yesterday would be better.
Right.
But not 6 weeks from now, 6 months from now. Oh, we'll give them another chance. We'll see if they turn around. Like, you have time for that? Like, there are places for that. Yes, absolutely. I mean, you do want to help people and grow people, and you want to be a good person towards others. Then do a better job bringing them in so you don't have to deal with firing them.
Right.
That's how I would look at it. I don't like firing people. Nobody likes firing people. It's not a great thing to do. But at the same time, if I didn't do a good job bringing them in, then I have to pay for that.
Right.
Right? That's my my punishment for being lazy on the front end.
Right.
So you'll notice, and you can speak from experience on this, when you spend the time to find people, the right way through the process, the odds of having a bad hire, it happens, but it's like 1 in 10.
Right.
Right? Whereas the other way, it's like probably 9 out of 10. Because you're just going off of the general society. Like, how many people, let's say, if you send a 1 score for someone who's hiring an admin person, you got like 30 applicants. How many of them have a 1 score that you would interview?
Out of 30 applicants, I would say lucky if you have like 5 or 6.
Okay, so that tells you the kind of batting average. It's almost 10 to 1.
Right.
Right?
It's true.
So, you got to pay attention there. Like, it's 1.5 to 1 maybe, or 1.5 to 10. Like, so out of 10 people, if you're just willy-nilly doing this, you're going to make 9 mistakes.
Absolutely.
Now, I don't know what order you're going to get that right person. It might be the second person. It might be the ninth person if you're unlucky.
Right.
Right. So don't play games with the hiring process. Whatever you shortcut, you're going to pay for.
Yep.
I mean, you didn't shortcut your way through dental school. You don't shortcut your way through a procedure with the patient. You know they're going to have problems and they're going to come back and they're going to be upset with you. So why would you do that to yourself?
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, let's keep going.
Okay. My overhead is skyrocketing. What should I do? And particularly wages and supplies.
Oh, yeah. So right now is the worst scenario. You have, and this isn't surprising, by the way. I've been watching this happen for a few years. Without getting into a long dissertation about economics, I'll just say this. While the government has been telling us that inflation is 2%, the last couple of years you have noticed in your grocery bill. You have noticed in the price of homes. You've noticed in real assets, okay?
Right.
So things have been going up much faster. Now, the way they get 2% is there's a weighted average of a basket of goods, let's say, that a consumer will buy. And they'll say, okay, well, it's going up 2% a year. But what they do is every year they change what's in the basket. And they assume that people will, last year they would have bought a steak. This year they'll just buy like a tofu patty or something.
Right.
No, but the reality is that most people aren't doing that. The middle class isn't doing that.
Right.
So let's look at the real statistics, the way they were calculated 10 or 15 years ago, shows that, and you can find this on Shadow Stats, that inflation is 10%, has been there for a while. Now they're saying it's double. It's 3.6%. I saw this 2 days ago. Well, if it's 3.6% from the government, I'm going to tell you it's 20%. And you want to know how you can tell? A 2x4 is 4 times the price it was last year. Plumbing supplies, a house in general. There's bidding wars in Sault Ste. Marie, okay? You ought to be laughing. I know you don't know where Sault Ste. Marie is, but that is hilarious. Like, in Sault Ste. Marie, it could take you 3 years to sell a house. Okay, not 3 weeks, 3 years.
Yep.
Now, anything will sell, and there will be a bidding war on it. There was a cottage that sold not far from where mine is. It sold for twice the asking price.
Oh my gosh.
I can't believe it. I can't believe it. It's not like it was a new, nice place. It was average. But that's the reality of the market. So, is it because everything is so much more valuable today than it was last year? No. The value of the dollar is plummeting. And it has been for years. If you look at what you could buy with a dollar, from the inception of the dollar to now, the dollar is worth about 2 cents of what it was in terms of purchasing power. So it is inflation that is ramping up right now. And well, rightfully so. You can't print billions and billions of dollars, trillions in the US example, flood it into the market and expect that asset prices are going to stay the same. So bring us back to dentistry. Box of gloves went up 3 times. How the heck am I going to make money with that? My staff wages. Oh yeah, let's talk about staff wages. We kind of already talked about this a little bit, but I want to tackle this. In some areas, a hygienist is wanting $65, $70 an hour. And they're getting it. And still the dentist can't find them. That's not healthy for the market. But at the same time, this is what's happening. Well, this hygienist now needs to go out and buy the stuff that she was buying last year. And because the stuff went up 20%, they want a 20% raise, so their paycheck buys what they used to buy.
Right.
Because they went to the grocery store and spent $100, and this year it's $200. Like, groceries are outrageous. I don't go to the grocery store often, but every time I go, it's like, wow, I don't remember it being that expensive. Like, what happened?
It really has.
So the things have changed economically. And so what you've got is the dentist right now is being squeezed. And I think there is a short-term and a long-term aspect to this. The dentist is stuck in a point where I'm running a business and my expenses are ballooning, but my fees haven't changed. That's a problem. Now, hopefully, and not hopefully, depending on how you look at it, the associations that set the fee schedules, depending where you're located, if you have a fee schedule or not, will increase the fees more than the 2% that they've been giving you every now and then. You needs to go up like 10% to make up for last year.
Right.
Will they do it in 1 year? Probably not. Will it happen over 2 years? Probably. They'll have to. They can't. There's no other way around it. If you don't increase the fees to some degree, how will you keep dentistry where it was?
Right.
But the other side of it is if you increase the fees, the cost of dentistry to such a degree, the Tim Hortons employee wage hasn't changed. That person now just can't buy squat with their $15 an hour.
Right.
Which is horrible. Like economically, that's a problem. That has to be fixed. So you have a couple options. The government can socialize dentistry, which would be awful because they always get it wrong when they get involved. Or the monetary system can change, which it will. So digital currency will happen. It will happen in North America within the year. I guarantee it. Maybe 2 years, but I don't think it'll take that long. And things will reset to some degree. And we'll see where that falls. I don't know. But what do I do about it now? Right? What do I do about it now is the question. Well, again, we kind of covered some of this stuff in the previous question, which is a good question. If my hygienists or my wages across the board need to go up because the market's now bearing it, everyone's desperate to find hygienists and assistants, what do I pay them? Well, I'll tell you what, if you don't pay them what the market's bearing, they're going to leave. So I have always made sure that I pay my team what the market will bear for them. I don't want them to leave me for money. If they're leaving me for money, we have a problem. I can't be cheap with them, okay? Now, I also have to mind my overhead. So maybe we're not going bananas on incentives, but they will leave me for the dollar per hour, not the same as the other guy down the street, especially if I'm demanding a little bit more out of them, which I would, okay? I would pair the raise with here's the deal. I want to give you a raise of X, but I'm looking for you to do Y. As long as you can hold up your end of the deal, I'd be happy to hold up my end of the deal. Now, if they stop doing it, are you going to decrease their wage? Probably not, but you want to tie it to something so that they know in the back of their mind if they're not performing, that they're not being 100% up to speed. They'll try a little harder.
Right.
But if you don't give it to them, they're going to leave. So I would look at how can I do that, okay? Again, I kind of gave you the formula in the previous question, right? I want my billing per hour to be $800. Anything that's not $800, put it in the staff schedule. Get it off my plate, okay? If I do that, then I've already fixed a lot of overhead problems. Secondarily, if the hygienist is now doing the practice growth challenges and they've upped their daily production by like $200 is easy. Am I going to be paying them that much? If I give them a $10 increase, that's $80.
Right.
$20 increase, $160 on an 8-hour day. They're still ahead.
It's worth it.
So it's worth it to have the hygienist because the hygienist allows new patients and allows treatment plans. Now, this is the full scope of the system being considered here. They need to be doing a great job with new patient exams. They need to be doing a great job treatment planning and presenting treatment. If they're not doing those things, well, now things can get underwater because I'm paying this person to do things that they're not doing.
Right.
Right. If you really want to get all the juice and not be worried about the overhead increase right now, because it'll work itself out, I think. Or, something else will change that we can't predict, but we can't worry about that which we cannot control.
Right.
What we can control right now is where our dynamic is in terms of profitability. And that's an easy switch. That's an easy thing to change. So just make a note of, okay, we're going to tackle these areas. And the primary area, like I said, is pull things out of my schedule that I don't need to do. Pull things out of their schedule they don't need to do. Make sure they're focusing on number one, which is fabulous experience, great new patient exam, present treatment. Photos, simulations, whatever that looks like, but they got to do it. If they're doing that, we're going to win.
Right. I'm
not worried about the overhead. Yeah, okay, you might get the 26% staff cost. Even 30%. It's ugly, but you'll be making money. Whereas the average practice is going to get hammered this year.
Right.
I believe that. And I can tell from our own stats, like, the Zebra folks, they give us stats every now and then just comparing us to other consulting groups and to the dentists at large. And they tell us we're up 18% over other groups. Well, there's something going on there, right?
Exactly.
I mean, and that's other consulting groups. Take the average dentist with no growth year over year or, decreasing production year over year. That's scary.
It is.
Right? So, and we see it with new people coming in, right? Primary concern is uncertainty about my practice future.
Right.
So, yeah. Okay.
Perfect.
thank you for listening to this episode of the Canadian Dentist Podcast. If you want to know how Dr. Biasucci tripled his practice in 3 years and cut his work week in half, request your free information kit at theelitepractice.com.